Hi rail fans, this video walks through the process that I used to build a model 33,000 gallon type liquefied petroleum gas tank car in 129 or G scale. I got the idea to make this from 3D printed parts from the Printables website, and I based my first model on the unibody tank car from Manimal. I've then made an assortment of my own modifications and custom pieces, including the larger tank platform that is common on these LPG tankers, as can be seen in this nice example I saw outside of Gastonia, North Carolina. You can download my parts on Printables also, and I have put the links to the parts in the description. The first step, of course, is to cut some Schedule 40 3-inch piping. I've used both the white PVC and the black ABS. They both work fine and have the same outside diameter. I used 18-inch pieces for the LPG tanker and 16-inch pieces for shorter tankers. I recommend washing them with soap before painting. Download your 3D parts and get them printing. I used PLA for my first parts. The first assembly step is building the tanks by gluing the end caps to the pipe. I used super glue. To make painting the tanks easier, I made tank hangers by cutting and bending wire coat hangers that fit the end holes in the tank. The first paint coat I used was a sandable filler, mainly on the end caps to remove the printing ridges. After painting with the filler, I used a sanding sponge to wet sand the end caps to make them smooth. I used between 300 and 400 grit. I then painted the tanks their final color with about 3 coats, black in this case. You of course have to wait for everything to dry between these steps. I found I usually needed 48 hours for a solid dry. The next step is to attach your truck mounts. There are different types of trucks and wheels. I've used the American Mainline as well as the newer and older Bachmann. The AML trucks have a slightly smaller diameter pivot hole, about 6.3 millimeters. The Bachmann trucks have larger holes. The newer Bachmann trucks also have an angle piece that goes to the coupler. The AML and older Bachmann trucks will work with truck mounts that are thicker because they have a flat connector piece. However, I found that the newer Bachmann trucks that have an upward angle on the coupler mount will interfere with the bottom of thicker truck mounts. So I modified the truck mounts from Manimal to make these smooth on the bottom for the Bachmann angle trucks. I've used these Bachmann trucks for all of the LPG tankers shown here. Once you have your truck mount style chosen, start attaching your other parts, including the tank bolsters, compressed air tank, and valve with super glue. Since there are a lot of holes to be drilled in the round tanks, I made a jig to guide the drills. For the LPG tank, I used the 18-inch jig. It is a 2-piece assembly to fit on the print plate. Note, these are just pilot holes. For the stanchions, you'll need to enlarge the holes with a larger drill bit after. You can then mount the trucks to the tank body. These screw holes should not need to be enlarged from the jig. Superglue the tank end mount to the truck mount, but not to the tank itself, so that the trucks can be easily removed later. You can then mount the truck mount handrails. I used modified tank end rail mounts with guide pins based on the Lump 9 Remix, but mine are shorter. You might have to enlarge the holes in the truck for the brass rail. I used 1/16" brass rod for the tank end rails. Superglue the brass to the truck, but not to the tank itself, again, so this will be removable later. Enlarge the stanchion holes. And then you can mount the stanchions. My stanchions have a slight angle from the mounting pin. Make sure they are facing the same way. You can also use 1.5mm carbon fiber rod as an alternative to the brass rod for the tank length rail. I next prepare the holes for the platform and the manway using this jig. First, find the midway point on the tank. If you have a small level, you can use this to make sure the platform will be level. Building the platform requires a bit of patience. My platform design has holes for the handrail mounts to press fit in. I used 3/64" brass rod for the handrails. The manimal design has a wire bending jig you can download, but I ended up doing it by hand. I designed a handbrake wheel and mount that attaches to the truck mount directly. There is a tiny nub in the back of the mount that allows you to attach a chain to, if you want that sort of detail. For these LPG cars, I painted all of my pieces semi-gloss black. Getting close to the end, I finished the tank body with water slide decals. There are a few vendors I have been using. Suggestions are in the description. These decals can be moved around while they are wet. Once the decals are in place, remove the excess water and then paint them with the decal setting agent. My hazard plaques are slightly modified to have a flat surface, which I found easier to mount the decals to. The model is almost done. You can put the trucks on with a screw in the pivot point. The last piece for me was the ladder. I remixed Manimal's ladder design to be a two-piece design that I glued together after printing. I had better printing results with this. I recommend not gluing your platform to the tank and only gluing your ladder to the platform. That way it is easier to pull that off for transportation or storage, and you can pack several tankers in a box with the more delicate platforms and ladders packed separately. That's the final design. Enjoy and keep a lookout for my other railcar builds that I hope to post soon.